Welcome to this week's episode of Highside Podcast, everybody. I'm Donnie, and this is Josh. Um, well, just go straight into it. We are going to Mexico this weekend. Not we, NASCAR is, but that's what the show's about. So,
It would be cool if we
hey,
were going to Mexico.
I know, dude. I've been to the Philippines. That's the only time I've ever been out of the country. Never been to Mexico. Have you been out of the country?
I have not. I've only been to a handful of different states within the United States.
Okay. Well, what do you think? How do you think the race is going to be? First time down there.
I think it'll go just fine. You know, we've seen them do Mexico City before in the
Yeah, the
the
lower
Xfinity
end.
series a long time ago. But I think we're gonna look at the some of the same players we would typically on any other road course race, like Reddick, Bell, probably Byron, and obviously Shane Van Gisbergen. Christopher Buescher usually runs pretty good, so I think it'll be a lot of the same guys. But you never know; somebody else could surprise us. There were some guys that were fast in practice that you don't see every day, like Todd Gilliland and Michael McDowell.
Yeah. Especially with how good Spire seems to have been performing lately. You definitely a good opportunity for McDowell to come show his chops again at a road course. He's very fast there usually. Well, given the fact that it's going to be like a fresh track for what is it, most of the Cup garage. I don't know. I just feel like it's probably a perfect storm for SVG, just like when we went to Chicago. Completely fresh track for these guys, and then he goes out and wins. I feel like the same kind of thing is going to happen.
Yeah, that Gisbergen was top 10 in both practices, eighth and 10th. So those guys are definitely going to know he's there. But another one was Ross Chastain. Ross Chastain was top 10 in both of them, and that's SVG's teammate. So some of that road prowess is obviously rubbing off on him. And the last time we went to a track for the first time at Coda, Ross Chastain was the winner there.
Uh, Speaking of Ross, he's got to have a lot of forward momentum right now, fresh off the 600 win, and he's really good at road courses. I don't know. I don't know, man. I kind of feel like maybe Kyle Busch. Is he on the list at all?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle's always going to be somewhere. I mean, we saw him run really good and almost win Coda this season, so I wouldn't be surprised if Kyle turns up somewhere at the end of the race. It doesn't look like he performed very well in practice, but you never know what their agenda was going out there, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, they seem to run well, especially when they have a little bit more practice. And I think is it I might have misread it, but is it that NASCAR extended practice or track time due to the aircraft having its engine issues or just moved practice?
Yeah, I think they just moved the timing. I don't think they gave anybody more time on the track. But one thing also I think they might have had to contend with, I'm not sure, I didn't see really much of it, but obviously they have rain tires and they're rain ready. I think there's been a little bit of weather in Mexico City this weekend, so that's another element that could throw those guys through for a curve.
Yeah, that would be uh that would be kind of a hassle. Who would perform better on rain?
Well, I think the last time we saw rain in the Cup Series, one of the last times, I guess, was the Chicago Street Course that Van Gisbergen won. I can't remember if we've seen one since, but I think he's going to be a favorite regardless. But if it goes wet, him and I think Christopher Bell and both Tyler Reddick were pretty good in that same race. So I could definitely see it being a race between those three.
Didn't it rain when Bowman won too? Or was that an issue with lighting?
I think it did. It did rain that weekend. I don't remember if it affected the Cup races much, but I know that was the weekend that they shortened the Xfinity race, just because they don't have lights, and it was gonna be unsafe if they ran full distance.
Well, it should be an exciting weekend in Mexico. One driver that's not going to be there though, ending his streak since he started, wasn't it? Oh no, since 2013 when he had this back injury. Hamlin had a child.
Yeah, it's obviously awesome for them. He told us this week that not us personally, obviously, but he told the fan base that if the baby hadn't come out by the time the planes had taken off, that he was going to stay, and he just happened to have they just happened to have the kid the same day that NASCAR is leaving, and it's cool though he gets to be there with the family in the hospital, and then bring the new kid home for the first time. So it's cool that that's not something that he was going to miss, and it would have been probably the worst week for him to go off and race being so far away from home. If they did do the extraction, if you will, like they were talking about a couple weeks, the last 2 weeks, of putting somebody else in the car. I don't know if they would been able to pull that off in Mexico.
Yeah, it should be cool too seeing Ryan Truex in the car. See how he will do in some Gibbs equipment. See if he's anything like his older brother.
Yeah, Ryan's gotten a lot of different opportunities, throughout his NASCAR career, but never really a prime spot like like maybe the top team in the sport right now, and it'll definitely have a lot of pressure on him, but they're not, of course, going to be expecting him to go out and win the race or anything, but he's got an opportunity to go out there and maybe prove some doubters wrong.
Yeah, I'm gonna be pulling for him. It's gonna look weird seeing somebody else in the 11 car. Um, who backed up for Hamlin when he was out on his back injury?
I think they had a couple of guys. I know Matt Crafton did one of them. I think JJ Yaley might have been in one of them. Somebody like that. I don't remember, but I know Matt Crafton did one of them. But one little nugget about Ryan Truex, he's obviously hasn't been at the top of the boards in practice, but he has been outrunning Catherine Lake. So as long as he's doing that, I think he's checking a box.
She there in Mexico this weekend?
Yes, she is.
Oh wow. Oh yeah. Well, there you go. That'll be a that'll be a fun one to watch. Do you think she makes it the entire race?
I think it would be good for her if she did. That's obviously going to be her goal, but we haven't seen it, so I wouldn't be 100% confident. But even if she finishes 36, that would be obviously great if she was for her, just for herself and the team, if they were able to run the whole race. But I think what we've seen a lot of times is it just doesn't look fair putting her out there. So they kind of put her out there in the slowest car, with very little experience. So hopefully she's just able to run a clean race and not make anybody mad.
Yeah. Hopefully the best for her. I know she's been catching a lot of heat through social media because of everything that's been happening in terms of her drive through the Cup Series so far. But I had a side question for you. I don't know if you were able to get an answer on this. I tried looking around for it. Maybe I didn't look good enough. I was just kind of curious what the process is for a lot of these drivers and teams to cross over into Mexico. Like, do they just get like a pass? Did they all have to get passports and approved? Like, how did that work?
Yeah, I'm not sure how it works when you come down to the specifics of dotting the I's and crossing the T's, but I know, post Michigan last weekend, they had all the cars from Mexico City already in Michigan, and they did a car swap. And there was a truck that took the Michigan car back, and then there was a truck that went down to the border, and the entire garage area basically, not including the drivers, just the trucks left from Michigan at the exact same time to get to the border, within a certain amount of time, and they all had to be there at some certain point on Wednesday or something to be able to all get checked. But they definitely had to go through the border check process, whatever that looks like, and they had it on a on a time frame that they had to be there, and it was a hard time. So yeah, that was when it got pretty hard because I think they showed us obviously thousands of miles, but it's like 32 hours to drive from Michigan to Mexico City, and
Oh
it's
my
a
God.
pretty long drive for them.
That would have been absolutely rough. I mean, I like driving for a long time, but driving on a time crunch, that's got to be miserable. I wouldn't want to be in that position.
Yeah, and then of course into a completely different country. Uh, everybody's probably looking at you different, when they don't know what you're all about, down in Mexico.
I'm sure, I'm sure that this has to be like a pretty well received. I mean, it's going to be like a sellout crowd, right?
I would think so. They're big into, auto racing. There's a NASCAR Mexico series that, we don't ever see a lot about, I think, unless you just go looking for it. But, they know what stock car racing is. I think it looks different than what we see every weekend, but they know what it is, and I think they have some well-known drivers, and I'm kind of surprised that none of them are in the field this weekend. I would have thought that they would have had a ringer from the country in the race this weekend, not named Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, and it's just the Cup Series, right?
No, what the Xfinity series is down there too.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't know that part. Yeah, I am kind of surprised then. I figured that'd be a perfect opportunity to get somebody from that series. And it would be a good opportunity for that series to get some eyes on it. Kind of like when Kyle Larson goes and does IndyCar, or like an IndyCar guy comes and does NASCAR. Just something to kind of like mix it up a little bit, you know?
Yeah, how awesome would that be if somebody like in the Xfinity series from Mexican NASCAR went out there and won the race, and then had to have an interpreter in Victory Lane to talk to TV.
Yeah, that would be badass. I hope NASCAR's listening right now. We would take commissions for this, please. Um, but you know what? You did mention truck. I know you're referring to the actual semi, but that reminded me we got to see the reveal of Ram making its return into the truck series next season.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. We haven't seen Dodge in a very long time, and they didn't announce any drivers or teams or anything, but so that'll be pretty interesting when they do announce who their big or small team or driver is going to be. But Michael Waltrip tried to think he was spoiling something on the truck broadcast last weekend, saying that he'd like to see him announce Cletus McFarland driving the Ram next year full time in the truck series. We don't know if that'll happen, but Michael Waltrip, he's plugged in, as nutty as he may be, so he may know what we don't.
Yeah, I think I also heard some churnings about Cletus McFarland in the Ram as a reveal race. I don't know if it was necessarily like a full-time ride deal, but
Yeah,
hell, it may be.
yeah, I remember seeing just like a rumor mill type thing on X like an entire week before that truck race. So people were upset on social media thinking that he uh spilled the tea on some news or something, but I don't, none of us know, of course. I don't even know if he knows, but he probably just saw that same social media deal and was like, "Oh, this is real. Cletus McFarland's coming to the truck." So that'll be pretty interesting to see if he is the guy. Because I mean, even though he doesn't have a whole lot of experience, that's a big name to go into a return for Dodge.
Yes, it is, and especially how he's been pulling more eyes into the sport just from his social media presence. on YouTube. So I'm pretty sure having him drive Ram's truck, that'd be a perfect re-entry into the sport for that motor company.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then, then they come back slowly. It's interesting to wonder about if they'll eventually come back into the Cup Series, and if they did, somebody's going to have to move because a new team isn't going to just start up. So it'd be interesting to see what sitting team would move to Dodge if that became a reality.
Yeah, I but I do know one team that won't, unfortunately, because I would love to see Keselowski back in a Dodge. But as long as he's at Roush, that team's staying forward.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I almost wonder if maybe Penske would go back, but he's like the big dog at Ford. So even that be kind of, I did hear something like maybe Trackhouse. That would make sense.
Yeah, I could see something like that. They're not, just like an established, Chevy backed for, 20, 30 years, like some other teams, like a Hendrick or something. So I don't think it'd be too far out of the realm of possibility to see, more of an upstart team. Not necessarily an upstart because, they had parts and pieces already established from a previous team, but, I could see that happening.
And speaking, and I have to glaze over this real quick, but speaking of Keselowski, how about all three cars getting a top 10 at Michigan?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive for them because, we've seen Busher and Priest be able to do it, but we haven't seen Brad Keselowski be able to really even run up front until the last few weeks. And, he had that good finish at, uh, Kansas, whatever it was. And then I think it was the Kansas race. And he said, well, we're going to get ready to go and hopefully win Michigan. And, he obviously didn't win, but, he ran inside the top 10 at the end. So the six teams definitely looking forward. So hopefully they can stay on that same trajectory.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they can as well. I'm enjoying the ride that we're on right now in terms of some RFK success. So hopefully they keep it going, especially down in Mexico. I know for the most part they're pretty good at road racing. Brad's kind of, but I think Chris Busher's their wheel man when it comes to road courses. So I know they're at least going to have one car finish well. So now there was another subject I wanted to bring up and I completely forgot. It slipped my mind. Was there something you wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I think one thing, obviously, we're talking about Mexico. I think we would be wrong if we didn't talk about Daniel Suarez a little bit. Just maybe how we think he'll do, or I know there's been a lot of social media presence from Daniel Suarez. Just there's one where he's in a classroom with a few drivers, just teaching them some like slang Spanish terms and like Spanish sentences. It's pretty funny with Bowman and Cindric and I think Ryan Priest. If you guys have seen those are really funny. If you haven't, go back and watch. I know this will um, probably be out before that race. But if you haven't seen those commercials, they're really funny. You should definitely check them out.
You know, I just randomly thought of like how funny it would be. Like, obviously, if Suarez won the race, it'd be perfect fit. But who do you think would be super out of place if they won the race?
Super out of place if they want to race in Mexico, like specifically in Mexico.
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe Brad Keselowski. Who knows?
that would be pretty. I'm trying to think who's like. Oh, you know what? It's not obviously he's not there, but that'd be like Cletus McFarland kind of like out of place. Like just somebody who's just so southern. I know that's the character, but like I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be pretty awesome. Like Yeah, I was thinking of, somebody like a Dale Earnhardt Jr., but there's not like another like Southern twang driver really in NASCAR right now. Like it'd be, great. It's probably gonna
Probably,
be great listening to Dale Earnhardt Jr.'s commentary, but somebody like him winning the race would be cool. Like Chris
yeah,
Buescher, maybe.
yeah, Busher. I was also thinking Austin Dillon. Not that I kind of hope he doesn't win, but that would be
Yeah.
another one.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily Buescher would be, that completely random drivers. I mean, he is a Texan, so he's probably grown up, around maybe some of the culture possibly. I don't know, but I don't think he'd be necessarily super out of place. But he's another one of the kind of Southern guys that would just be kind of funny to see how he might celebrate a win in Mexico.
Yeah. So, with all that being said, do you have like a definite pick for you?
I think we've hit on him. I'm just gonna I'll say SVG. He's been kind of creeping up on him, getting a lot better results at the ovals recently, and not really even just the results. He's been like his runs just in the last 3 weeks or so have started getting better from start to finish. So we're going back to another road course. Obviously where we expect him to excel. So I'm gonna hope he goes to victory lane, and that'll take up what I think the 10th playoff spot on wins. So that'll start making the cutoff even tighter. If a guy that from 25th or something in points, wherever he might be, close to 30th, was to win and take away a spot, because I know the cut line is really tight right now.
Yeah, it is. Uh, I also feel like SVG, but I think it's kind of cheating if I pick him too. I don't know how many people would agree with my pick here, but there's two standout drivers for me. I'm kind of having a toss up between Christopher Bell and William Byron. I think they're both really great road course racers. I'm just trying to figure out who's got the edge, like when it comes to like going to a new. What style of track is Mexico? What would you compare it to in the current Cup schedule?
Yeah, I don't. It's been a long time since I watched a race from Mexico, so I'm not really sure what I would say I would compare it to. But one thing I know that's really cool is they've like changed the layout of the track where they kind of drive through a stadium section, and there's like stadium seating on either side of the drivers as they run through like the finish line portion of the track. So like it's gonna look really cool. The drivers looking out their windshields, seeing the fans basically right in front of them, where usually they'd have to look out the sides or something. So I don't know if you've seen a shot of what that stadium portion looks like, but that's really cool that no other track has anywhere, that NASCAR goes to at least.
Yeah. So, oh yeah, I didn't get to see a lap yet. I know they threw an onboard. I'm pretty sure editors are going to toss one up for the viewers at least. But you know what? Okay, I'm just going to make my pick. I'm just going to rip off the band-aid. I'm going to go with the 24 Byron.
Yeah,
That's my
that's a
pick.
that's a good pick. And then you know I already know I made mine, but there's AJ Allmendinger. He's even below the cut line right now, and his speed of late has been coming up too. So we know that's a guy that could probably go toe to toe with the best road course racer that happens to show up on Sunday, whoever that may be.
Yeah, AJ Allmendinger. Oh man, how cool would it be if he won that race?
How cool would it be if it was AJ Allmendinger versus SVG? 15 seconds ahead, a third going for the win in Mexico.
How, you know what? That would be sick.
Two of the best in the world, going at it on road course racing would be amazing. It's always cool, when we see just our regular cup guys take it to a driver like SVG or Allmendinger that made a living at doing road course racing. But I think it'd be it would be really awesome to see those two just take the gloves off and go after the win just with each other.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But I hope for the sake of NASCAR, I hope NASCAR wins this week. And I think the perfect story that you could possibly ever get from this weekend would be a Suarez win in Mexico. I think that would open up so much more viewership to our to this sport, and especially bringing in those international fans. I mean, the same way SVG did it in Chicago, and just Cletus McFarland racing in the ARCA series. Like, so much more eyes is now getting on the sport, and uh, yeah, just imagine if he won in Mexico, and then that would be so good for Amazon Prime as well, because I know Prime has got to be booming right now, having NASCAR on their ticket.
Yeah, I know they probably have a lot of young fan base down there too, but I saw a ratings review from Michigan where like the 55 plus demographic had a fall off, but like the 18 to 25 or whatever they call it, there was a jump from last year on Prime, compared to Fox or whoever would have had Michigan. So it'd be cool, Suarez in front of his home fans, and then of course a lot of young kids that want to be the next Daniel Suarez, tuning in to watch the race, and all it would take for him is to win, and then those people are gonna be tuned in the next week probably.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be an exciting one to watch. I'm I'm pulling for the sport as a whole in general. So hopefully I'll be able to watch a little bit while I'm working at Best Buy.
Yeah, it's always great when we get to see something new and it's unknown, because the Cup Series has never done it, but there's a couple of guys maybe that were at the last race. I don't know if I wouldn't even know who to pull. I don't know if like Brad Keselowski would have been in there. I don't think he would have been, but uh, I wouldn't even know who to pull. We might have to leave that in the comments when this thing comes out.
Oh, definitely. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, I think we hit just about everything. We did that very, very muy rapido. That probably wasn't right, but we were on speed rapido.
C.
Muy bien.
Muy bien. Uh, I don't know what else. We'll have a
Tacos for
translator
dinner
come in
on
and do these
Sunday.
tacos
Tacos.
for dinner on Sunday. Yep,
Yeah.
Taco Bell. Let's go, guys. Let's do it. So, so this is what we'll do. We will go ahead and wrap this show up. We'll take it around the high side one last time. Check us out on social media. Check the description. Leave a comment. Let us know who you think is going to win the race. And shout out to our new editor right now, Mr. Jared Skinner. He's behind the glass over there, listening to me and Josh talk shit to each other. So, yeah, guys. And most recent winner in a Highside podcast car, Mr. Hunter Sr. got it done at Atlanta, in the Superstar ARCA series. So check it out. I'm sure we'll have that somewhere in the description as well. So, all right, we will see you next time we decide to post on YouTube. Have a good one, everybody.